I'm sure you've seen buttons just like this one where depending on where you click on it, it sort of, this pulse radiates out from the location you've clicked. Google uses it, it's here on YouTube, and I've seen it all over the place. And in this video, we're gonna be looking at how we can make our own. Hello, my front-end friends. Thank you so much for coming to join me once again. And if you're new here, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel, I hope you fall madly, deeply in love with CSS. And if I can't get you to fall in love with it, I'm hoping to at least get you to be a little bit less frustrated by it. And today we're doing that by having some fun with CSS and a little sprinkle of JavaScript on top of that to make the whole thing work properly. So if we dive into the code, you can see here, I don't have very much set up. We just basically have a button here. In my HTML, there's nothing else in here other than having a button there with a click me in it. The CSS, all I've done is set a background color, and we've set a font family, and my JavaScript is completely empty. So we're not starting with very much. And the first thing we're going to do is, my class on that was ripple button. So on there, I'm going to give it a really big font size just because it is a demo. And so let's do that at 3 rem. And that'll just make it easier to see what's happening. Obviously, you wouldn't want yours actually to be that big. And here on the body, I'm also going to put in a min height of 100 VH and a display of grid and a place items of center, just so that button can be dead right in the middle of the page. Except it's not working because I didn't spell height properly. That's embarrassing. There we go. And we get this nice big click me right there. One thing, if you have form elements and there's some default styling that comes with them, we can throw an appearance of none on there, which will strip some of that away. So that you can see the border radius is gone. Maybe a few other little things. We still have that border and some not so nice stuff on there, but that's okay. We'll overwrite most of that. So for now, I'm going to do a padding. Let's make it pretty big so we can really see this effect. So I'll go with a 1em and 3em. And there we go. It's a nice huge button. Maybe we can also just throw, let's make it look more like the YouTube one that I'm basing this on. So we'll do a text transform of uppercase. There we go. Background color can be transparent. And let's throw a color on there. And this is actually a really dark blue, even though it looks basically black. But the nice thing with HSL is then we can come in here and let's give this like a 75 maybe. So we get that color coming in. Let's make it a lot more vibrant, maybe even 100% saturation on that. 65. There we go. I think that looks not too bad. And on the border, let's just say 5 pixels solid and current color. There we go. And a border radius, like a 0.125 em, just to give it a little soft edge. And there we go. We have some sort of button that's coming in. Oh, and it is a button. So we can also do a cursor of pointer on there. And there we go. We get the little hand that comes on that. And I'm basing this one off of YouTube's one that I have just off screen here. So if we pull that up, it's right here. So maybe not exactly the same, but there. And if ever you want to simulate just getting this one here, if you go to YouTube and in your dev tools on the network panel, you just say offline, that is the one that you'll get. Okay, so not too bad, and that one doesn't have a hover or anything, it only has the little click. So we can do that. And now for the click, there's a few different ways we could do it, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here with a ripple button before. And you could use an after as well, it doesn't really make a difference. Because it is a pseudo element, we do need the content property on there. And let's start by doing, we'll say width 100%. I'm gonna give it though an aspect ratio of 1/1. And if we give that a background, let's start with a color that we'll see. So we'll do yellow and maybe opacity of 0.5 just so it's not too bright of a yellow. If you do a pseudo element, you either need a position absolute or you need to have a display on it. So for it to show up, so let's do display. I think we'll need position absolute, but we'll start with a display of block so it appears. There we go. Perfect. It will definitely need a display of absolute for this one, or else it will take up room on here. So let's do that right away, actually. So position absolute. And so it has the width 100%, and it has the aspect ratio of 1. So it's this giant square that's overflowing off my page now. Oh, and it's also really too big because this 100% is based on the viewport. So let's come on my ripple button itself and add a position of relative there. That will be a little bit better. Now, there's different ways that we can get this to be where we want it to, but on my button here, if we come and we actually do a display of inline flex or inline grid, they both work, because that means we can actually center everything nice and easily by, with that, doing a, same as we did before, place items of center. And even though this is position absolute, that place items center works on it, which is cool. And yeah, we're still going to need to use some transforms and stuff, but at least that gets us on the right path. I'm going to drop this down because it's pretty bright. And yellow is ugly, eh? Let's do, what would green look like? That's a little less offensive. So that's good, but with that there, what if we did a... But when we click, we want it to be like a bubble that explodes out, right? Or ripples out or whatever. So here, let's also add a border radius of 50% so that we get a circle. We also want to make sure, like, if I'm clicking here, it's going to sort of expand out that way, and I don't want it to stop too close to the edge. So I'm going to try 150 instead. We'll have to play with, you know, it's a little big actually. Let's leave it at 100, but we'll definitely have to manipulate this number a little bit to probably get it to look good. We also want it to be behind the text. So on here, it's going to disappear for a second, but after position absolute, let's give that a Z index of -1. Oh, and it didn't disappear. There's the potential that it could disappear behind, in this case, there's no parent other than the body, so it's not doing it. But what I'm going to do here is an isolation of isolate, which creates a new stacking context. So it just means this -1 can't escape outside of the button, because this pseudo element right now is in here. It's a before, so it's actually the pseudo element's like where my cursor is now within the DOM. So it just means that that -1 can't go below my button. It's stuck inside of that context now. And there's other ways of creating new stacking contexts, but this is a somewhat new property we have that lets us do it without having any other side effects. And you can actually see now the text is on top. It's kind of hard. It's here. Let's just put the opacity at 1. And you'll see now you can still see the text. Whereas if I didn't have this Z index on here and we did it, it's on top of it. So it just makes the text a little bit more clear when we do it. So yeah, that's why we have that. Perfect. Or that, yeah, that's why we're doing that. And we'll eventually put an overflow of hidden on this so we can not, you know, we don't see the parts that are sticking out. All right, so now what I'm going to do is let's come over to my index and we're going to need const of ripple. I'm doing this with one button. So on this one, we do document.query selector. I'm only doing one of them. So my .ripple button, you could do a query selector all to get all the buttons. It could be all the buttons on your page or, you know, whatever you want. And then just do like a for each loop, and you could apply this to all your buttons rather than just one like I'm doing in this situation. Now, the first thing I actually want to be able to do is track the position of my mouse. But I want to track it, like we could track it across everything, but the only time it really matters is when it's on top of the button. So we just need to know the position of the mouse when we're on top of a button. And that's because if we want it to always look like it's coming out from where we click, we need to know where we're clicking. So we'll start this really simple and then we'll sort of break this apart a little bit. But let's start with a ripple button. And we'll do our add event listener. We're going to need this anyway. But in this case, I want a mouse move. So anytime my mouse is moving on top of the button, I want to be listening for that to be happening and to get information from that. So, and actually we were writing some JavaScript, so let's make this a little bit bigger. So we do our mouse move, and then we're going to do a function. So I want to be able to track the event that's happening. So we'll have my E there for the event, and then we can open and close our curly braces to come in with a function here. And let's let, we're going to say let position X be equal to, we want it to be equal to that E, and then we're going to say offset X. And as you might want to guess, you can do the same thing here, but we can do it with our position Y instead. So we get my Y and there. And for now, let's just do a console log of position X and position Y. And so with that, we should be able to get it. So let's go and take a look and open up the console. Can't access property add event listener. Ripple button is null. Why would ripple button be null? The only thing, we have ripple button. Did I not put it ripple button? Oh, it's my script, I forgot. Either the script is at the bottom or we can just throw a defer here. So basically it was this got here, it ran, but the button in the DOM hadn't loaded yet. So because the button hadn't loaded, it couldn't find it. So now if we hit a save, we should be able to find it. And now we're getting, nothing's happening, but at least we're not getting an error. Mouse. Kevin, I'm on a roll. Mouse move. Ah, there we go. Look at that. And the numbers and the offsets are working. And basically, if I'm close to the top, like when we're right around the top, you can see it's getting like our 0 into like the -1 because of the border there. And then if we go all the way to the right side, it's going that way. And if we go to the left side, the numbers are getting smaller because we're getting closer and closer. So 0, 0 would be top left, and then the big number, whatever, would be top right. Now, I don't want to just do this, though. We want to do a little bit more with it. And just to sort of, you know, make a bit more reusable code, let's turn this into its own function. So we'll say function mouse position to custom prop. And that's because we're going to use custom properties to make all of this magic happen. And for this, we're going to still need to track that event, but we're also going to need to have an element that we're going to have. So we could even, you know, we could write event and element. Do we need the event? I'm not sure. We'll find out in a second. So basically, we can take this. We're going to get that same information from here. So yeah, we will need the event because we have that. So this would be my event. Offset and event. So again, this is going to be the mouse move. It's getting tracked right here. And this event could be something else. So you could actually just listen for, oh, maybe we don't need to track a mouse move. We could listen for mouse down actually. But we'll see why this could be useful. And you could sort of switch things out by having it like this. So we have the mouse position X and Y. And then what we want to do is we want to map these to custom properties. So we can say that my element.style.set property, I believe it's like that. We want to have two different custom properties. We're going to have an X property, and that's going to get set to my position X. So that will be position X, except that it's a unitless number like we saw. So we can do plus and then PX. And people will love me right now because I'm mixing and matching my, my quotations, but that's what Prettier is good for. And then we can actually duplicate this one, but we just want to do my Y here. We'll get put to a Y. And then here, now we just need to say mouse position to custom prop. The only thing, because of how I've set this up, like technically it could work with a different element. So we're just going to say that the event is my E, since that's what we have coming right here. And then we come here and we can say ripple button. And we should be able to hit save. And now let's open my inspect and go into the inspector here. And as I move this around, look at that. You can see the custom properties are being updated as I move things around. So that should mean we can use those on my button. And we're doing it for mouse move now. We might switch this to a click after. But that means here, my ripple button before, we have a position absolute. We're going to say that the top is going to be my var X, and my left will be my var Y. So in doing that now, if I come, you can see, except I think this should be the other way around. That was kind of weird. Okay, there we go. So it's tracking to there. Now the problem with this tracking is it's the top left, which is over here. Because remember, I have a border radius on here. If we turn off the border radius, you can see it's the top left of that is following my mouse, which is always annoying because of how this all works, obviously. The solution to that is sort of that old school way of centering stuff when you're using position absolute, even though, you know, I guess that centering thing we were using before went out the window a little bit. So here we're going to do a transform. We're going to add to this a little bit, but we're going to do a translate of -50%, -50%. And now, as I move my mouse, it follows exactly in the middle of where my mouse is. Nice, right? So let's just try it. We're going to come here and we're going to say mouse down instead. So now it doesn't move, but if I click, it's going to move to that location. So that one might be a little bit better. We don't need to track it as it's moving around because it's going to be invisible. And when we click, then that's the only time that it actually matters. So maybe we could stick with that. And again, what's happening here is this event is being, we're grabbing that event, the mouse down, and getting the information from it. And then that information is getting passed to here, which is then it's getting the offset of where it's happening every time I click on top of that button. Cool. So now we can come over to here, and that is perfect. So we're going to actually say here on this transform, we're going to add a scale of 0. And that means it will vanish away and turn to nothing. Now what we're going to look at is two potential solutions. This first solution is going to make it work, but not perfectly. But you'll see what I mean. So we're going to come in and we're going to say ripple button active. And the active one is one you don't see used often. I don't use it very much. And for now, let's just start with a background of pink so you can see what it does. And if I come and I click, it's active. And as long as I'm holding the mouse down, it's active. And as soon as I let go of the mouse, it's no longer active. So what we could actually do is change this scale to go up to 1. And it's really important you keep this translate, because if you only put scale, the translate's going to go away. So the positioning of the whole thing will be ruined, basically. And what we want to do is bring that up to a 1. And now I need, I'm doing the button itself, active before. You don't want the button to move. And now every time I click, you can see my circle is showing up. So that's all right, because then we could come here and we could say transition, transform, and say 500 milliseconds for now. And if I click, it will start growing. If I let go, it shrinks away. Grow, shrink. And you might say, well, that's kind of cool. Let's just quickly come up to here, which is on the button itself, and throw an overflow of hidden on there. So now if I click, it's, sort of what we want, but the problem is if I just touch, it doesn't really work. And this is what I was hoping would be my first solution, to be honest. But obviously it's a little flawed because it doesn't really work. And if you hold it, it stays there, which isn't quite what we want. So instead of using this, what we're going to do is create some keyframes, and there'll be very simple keyframes. We'll call it pulse. And we'll start, we might only need an end state. We'll try with only the end state, which would be this right here, and that will go up to 1. So what we had before, and we'll probably play with opacity on this to really make it look nice by the ending of it. So to get this to do something, what we'll come and do is add a class of pulse. And on that, we can just say animation is going to be my pulse and 500 milliseconds like we had before. So we just need this to get added every time we click. Well, that should be easy enough. We already have this mouse down that's looking. I put mouse down just because we had mouse move. This could also be click. I just realized it should still work. And so what we could say here is then ripple button class list is add. And what do we want to add? We want to add that pulse class. So when that pulse class gets added, whoa, the whole button's moving. We don't want that to happen. That's kind of annoying. So pulse will have to be a pulse before, because we want to make sure we're targeting that same pseudo element. And that's one problem with JavaScript, is we can't really grab the pseudo element and apply styles directly to it. So this should have to work. But now if I click, except the animation just ran. And this is one of those times where see there it works. But now if I keep clicking, it's not running. If I refresh, I can run it and it looks good. Well, it looks good. We still need to fix it up. But once it's run one time, we're stuck. The reason that we're stuck is because here we can see, so let's refresh this page. I'll dock this on the side here. We have this, we have my ripple button. As soon as I click it, it adds that and I have my pulse. Well, that pulse ran, the animation finished. It won't add the animation again. You can see when I click, it's updating those coordinates, but that class is already there. So it won't remove and then add the class again. So we need to fix that. We need to be able to run this as many times as we want. So to do that, what we can do is go back to our JavaScript, and then we can do a ripple button add event listener. And this event listener is going to be for an animation end. Let's just make this bigger once again. So we're going to listen. So we're adding an animation here, and then we're going to listen and wait until that animation is finished. And when that animation is finished, we want to do something. What do we want to do? We want to take U, and we want to remove that pulse. So now, let's go and actually, let's keep that there. Ripple button is there. It should add it, and then it's gone. because it opens and then it leaves, I can just keep clicking and keep running that over and over again. Nice. That's basically what all we really needed to do there. We could, just like here I made this into a function, we could take this and also turn it into a function, so it could be applied to multiple different things. But let's just make this look a little bit nicer right now, because it does not look fantastic. So first of all, I'm going to change this to just an FFF, so we have a white color on it. The opacity, we're going to bring it up to a 1, which is going to make it not look very nice right now. Maybe we should actually stick with a 0.5. But here at 100%, we're also going to say that the opacity is going to be a 0. So it's going to start but like fade out as it gets to the end of the animation. You also notice I don't have any starting keyframes here. And that if you don't have a starting keyframe, it just means it's going to use the default styles on whatever element it's on as the beginning, and this is the ending over here. So now, doesn't that already look a lot better? There we go, we're basically done. So we get that rippling going, and the one thing that you might want to change is the width over here. And just depending on how big and how far out you want it to go, and it goes out from wherever you clicked. And just like that, we have this fun effect. If you like this one and you want to see another fun button that we can do, I've also looked at creating a neon button not that long ago. And if you'd like to check out that video, it is right here for your viewing pleasure. And with that, a very big thank you to Jan, Johnny, Stuart, Tim, and Simon, who are my supporters of Awesome over on Patreon, as well as all my other patrons for their monthly support. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.